Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, Jean-Claude Van Damme's acting career here with Rhyme Signatures, the nerdiest music review this side, despite nearly 40 years on screen, never really managing to be in any role more iconic than Guile in Street Fighter the movie. And today we're going to be doing a review of the new Ubiquity album. The Ascendant travels among the stars. If you're anything like me, you'll have seen the recent news about Opeth delaying their long-awaited new album by about 6 weeks or so, and have felt the bitter pang of disappointment. Yes, we've got a little while extra to wait until Ackerfeld and co. decide to once again enter the field of play, and yes, it's a little bit frustrating. The cited reason was of course due to production delays, whatever that means. Presumably there were issues with the vinyl pressing, maybe there were insufficient numbers produced to meet demand. I mean, who knows? It could really be for any number of reasons. But I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. It's all a lie. A carefully designed web of deceit and deception, because I know the real truth as to why The Last Will and Testament has been delayed. It's because one fateful morning, just as I did, Michael Ackerfeld sat down to listen to this debut album from Belgian prog metal band Ubiquity. And whereas I felt excitement, elation, and the thrill of something I've been longing for, Mickey Ackerfeld swallowed the lump in his throat and came to the sudden realization that his much-anticipated album is going to have to be something truly incredible to compare even remotely to this. Yes, my dear viewers, we've spent so much time, effort, and energy into getting hyped for the new Opeth, but what we didn't realise is that these starry-eyed Belgian youngsters have just dropped the new Opeth album we've been waiting for already. Now, if you're familiar with the bands I've been hyping and obsessed with of late, you'll likely maybe recognise some of the names in that splash screen just gone by, as Ubiquity is 3/4 of the band Omnirod, who last year dropped one of the best releases of 2023 in the form of the Immensal Rise. Now, at the time I compared it to a death metal Devin Townsend album, and I stand by that. But while that record followed the slightly quirkier, more playful pattern of progressive metal, this release definitely fits more in line with the darker, the more sinister, and the more aggressive playbook. As a result, what we have is a band that certainly has a lot of the trappings and playbook ideology of Omnirod, but manages to neatly avoid feeling like a side project or an offcut of that, and stands tall and proud as very much its own thing. Yes, I've made a lot of Opeth comparisons so far, and I'm going to continue to do so, but it won't take you long to see where I'm coming from when you listen to this record. But this is very much more of a compliment to the band than it is a detraction for any lack of perceived originality. You see, The Ascendant Travels Among the Stars feels more than just an inspiration-grabbing homage to the Swedish death metal masters, but more of a timeline branch where heritage never really happened, and Michael Ackerfeld looked back to records like Deliverance, like Still Life, and in fact Blackwater Park when deciding where to go next. My esteemed audience, this album, if given the chance to shine, could easily top many a list at the end of the year. So strap in, get comfy, and let's talk a little bit about this extraordinary release. Okay, straight up, let's talk about one of the more obvious things about this album. It's kind of a long boy. Now, this clocks in at around an hour or so in length, and while that may not seem that much on paper, especially for a progressive metal album, outside of the intro track of Tensegrity and the midpoint track of Coma, everything on this album either skirts around the 10 minutes in length part or exceeds it. And this makes for an album that feels stacked. Now, nothing on this album feels like it's designed as a lead single, which in turn means that every song on this album is given equal billing in its ability to grab and hook you in, which makes for an album of exceptional pace and integrity. It's nearly impossible for me to pick an individual favourite, given that everything on here takes you on such an adventure from opening bars to closing notes. I could talk about the scene-stealing keyboards that underline parts of Tree of Pain, or the folksy guitar sections of Red Moon, or the blistering riffs and chugs of Endless Depths, but the reality is that every moment on this album carries merit. It manages that incredibly rare and difficult task of never once feeling boring, never once dropping off or letting you lose interest. Now, obviously, I've listened to a hell of a lot of music in my time, especially since I started reviewing stuff on this channel 2 years ago. And most albums that I listen to inevitably have parts where I'm not as engaged, where my attention wanders a little and I get distracted. But what Ubiquity have done here is manage to make an album that's almost precisely zero fat or wasted airtime. It feels like the whole experience is carved with the hands of a Renaissance master. It is constantly thrilling, always throwing new and exciting sounds and ideas without ever feeling like it's running out of steam. The way it all builds and layers, it kept me on a constant knife edge of being excited for whatever they were going to bring in next. And the final two tracks of Endless Depths and Inner Blink are especially good examples of this. It never drags you under the murk of its death metal core for too long. There's always a moment of reprieve around the corner to prevent fatigue. Where bands like, Ulcerate specialise on the intensity of their material and the relentlessness of the experience is kind of the point, Ubiquity favour balance, and it makes sense. When most of your songs are 10 minutes or more in length, you kind of need variety. You need to keep the canvas flowing and keep the stakes unpredictable to maintain listener engagement. But it's just how well they've handled this challenge, how well they've managed to keep the balance of intensity and calm that makes the Ascendant Travels Among the Stars such a treat to listen to, and why it never feels like a slog to get through. It's because the guys have understood the difference between a great progressive death metal album and an exceptional one. Now, I've obviously mentioned the Opeth comparisons before, and it's hard to escape them because the album does owe a lot to Opeth. Anthony Denier's gruff, barked vocals are unmistakably similar to Ackerfeld's, managing to convey that sense of intimidation and power balanced with clarity and comprehension quite beautifully. But there's a lot of the Swedish master's attitudes and sensibilities in the structuring too. This has not dissimilar vibes to records like Deliverance and Still Life, giving off that kind of blackened and demonic vibe at most parts, but isn't without its moments to breathe. Take the middle song of Coma, coming hot off the heels of the double hit of Tree of Pain and The Traveller, over 20 minutes of brutality and riffs to give the listeners a 4-minute-long balm of clean vocals, keyboards and atmospherics. It's perfectly placed, fits the tone of the record incredibly, and sets up the big push of the last 3 tracks to absolutely knock people's heads off. And honestly, it's this back half of the album that really sells this one for me. Now, don't get me wrong, those first couple of songs are amazing, but the last 3 are stratospheric in their dizzying heights. The final track of Inner Blink could easily be branded as one of the best progressive death metal songs of the decade. It's up there with the likes of Arecibo by Parius, In the Heavens Above You Will Become a Monster by An Abstract Illusion, and False Light by White Ward. Ultimately, the biggest compliment I can give this album is that despite its length, despite its density and complexities, I find myself playing this one back to back over and over and over. It makes me want to jump right back in as soon as the final notes play out from the delicate, softly spoken outro of that final song. It's just long enough to give me that comeback down to earth that I need, just long enough to make me reflect on what I've been exposed to make me want to do it all over again without a hesitation in my mind. It is a massive record in scope, scale, and ambition, crafting a near-flawless tapestry of some of the most exciting sounds in modern contemporary progressive death metal, all wrapped up in one neat little package. If ever there was an indication that these guys are the future of the genre, that this is what I want progressive death metal to be doing, then what they've done here on their work in Ubiquity is prime evidence of it. Yeah, I got nothing. So, what else can I possibly say about Ubiquity's The Ascendant Travels Among the Stars? Look, I know maybe I'm putting an unfair amount of hype on this one, and I'm certain that not everyone who watches this video will vibe as hard with this record as I've done. But I don't mince my words here when I say that this is an almost guaranteed fit for Album of the Year, certainly at this point. It is going to take something of exceptionally rare and interesting quality to dethrone this album. It simply doesn't put a single foot wrong. It's immaculately produced, it's exciting, it's well written and heart-pounding, the vocals are brilliant, the use of keyboards tasteful and interesting, the guitars are crisp, the bass and drums thunderous. This is the first time this year that I've been at a loss for words when it comes to talking about anything negative on the album. And if that doesn't tell you everything that there is to know, then I guess nothing will. Okay, so maybe there's like one teensy tiny sole negative that I hope gets resolved soon. It's only available in digital formats, so by default I have to recommend that that is your purchasing option. I am of course hoping beyond hope that this eventually sees a physical release, as I have a mighty need to have this on vinyl, or at the very least on CD, because even the album art is outstanding. My one concern is that this review is maybe overhyping the record, but in the time I've been spending with this, it's ultimately about as flawless as it gets for this kind of music, and I am so excited for you guys to be able to hear this one for the first time. Please do not miss out on this. It is easily one of the best albums of the year and deserves as many ears on it as is humanly possible. This is all, of course, guys, just my opinion, so if you loved or hated this one, please talk to me about your experience of the album in the comments down below. Please do drop me a thumbs up if you liked the video. Please do tell all your friends about little old me, and please do drop me a subscription if you've been enjoying the content on the channel so far. But until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.